Hi Year 6, I'm going to read chapters 19 and 20 today because they are both very short and we can move ourselves along a little bit more in the story. So off we go. I did not know what to do. We could not stay here now that the Tibichanos had our scent, but we did not know the way, nor what lay ahead. To my surprise, Luke did not shout or blame me. She knelt and began gathering up the fragments. "Leave them," I said quietly. "There's no point." Tears threatened. That was Ma's map, all that I had left of her. Luke ignored me and collected as many bits of the map as she could. She piled them carefully and held them out. I rubbed my eyes fiercely. "It's all right to be scared, Isabella," she said. "I'm scared too." I looked up, blinking hard. Her expression was soft, and I remembered that face from years ago, from the day we first became friends. Luke holding out her hand as I sat crying by the abandoned rabbit warren, missing Gabbo. I took the fragments. The satchel strap had also snapped, so I emptied it, putting the keys and fragments into the pouch on my belt. I kept the blade in my hand. The worn leather of the handle felt comforting. "What now?" Luke asked, suddenly brisk. I squeezed my eyes shut and again tried to call the map to memory. I knew we were close to where the map had indicated an exit. When I'd looked just before the first Tibichano arrived, where had we been? The answer bubbled up behind my closed lids. Southeast, beneath the Arantara, that was it. The tunnel had curved and turned, but had roughly followed the line of the river. What next? The three possible routes onwards. "Isabella?" Luke's voice sent the vision of the map spiralling away, but it didn't matter. I knew. "We need to take the right passage." "Yes, but how are we meant to know which one that is?" "No, the right-hand passage," I pointed. "That one." She looked at me doubtfully. "That's where they came from." "They came from everywhere," I said impatiently. "That's the way out. We need to sort of follow it to a twisty sort of bit." "A twisty bit?" "Yes, like a knotted rope. But if we stay on the left side of the knot and take the first path off it, we'll get there." I was almost sure. Almost. We continued in silence. The path led downwards. The only good thing about the destruction of the map was now we could use the water for drinking. We passed a wide turn-off scored with paw prints, and I felt Luke relax slightly as I led us past into a narrower tunnel that was unmarked. The heat was growing, and soon I had a throbbing ache drilling deeper behind my temple. The sharp smell had become stronger until the air was barely breathable. My head was light, and the world around me felt soft and too close. I blinked, trying to push everything back into focus. Luke seemed dizzy too, stumbling occasionally and dragging her feet. Worst of all was the sameness of the surroundings. Without a sky, time meant nothing. I measured the distance by the ache in my legs. I longed for the clear skies above Gomera, bright with the sun or with stars, even the haze of the Forgotten Territories and the fearful wind of the Carmant village. My knee jarred painfully. The tunnel, suddenly horizontal, curved sharply ahead and its height dropped by almost a metre. Head bowed, we walked on, the ceiling continuing to slope until we were bent almost double. The Tibichanos would surely have trouble fitting through this space if they tracked us here, but what if I was taking us the wrong way? We'd be trapped. My throat tightened, but we had to keep moving. The tunnel continued closing in until we were crawling on our bellies, clothes catching on the rough edges of rock. It would be impossible to turn back in such a small space. I followed closely behind Luke's feet and tried not to think about the massive weight hanging over us, the whole of Joya poised over our heads. The tunnel curved again. I guess we were in what I'd called a twisty bit, the tunnel looping back on itself. This passage should intersect with others soon, and then we would take the first left, hopefully to an exit. I drew in a long, steadying breath, the air sharp in my chest. "Luke, I think we're going the right way." "I hope so," came her muffled reply as she spoke over her shoulder. "I don't think I can stand this much longer." "Well, no, we can't stand at all." "At least you're small." Luke's laugh was cut short. Her head and body rapidly disappeared, legs slithering after. I reached out, dropping the woodlight in my panic, but was left grasping air. "Luke!" A muted thump from the darkness ahead. "Luke?" Her reply made me jump, sending rock dust streaming. "I'm all right. It's only a short slope, Issa. You've got to see this." "What is it?" "Just lower yourself down. It's safe." I inched ahead, feeling for the edge. I dropped the blade and heard it clatter down, then hung for a moment, letting my weight tip me forward. It was not an elegant landing, and I only just missed the blade. I waited for Luke to laugh. but she was oddly silent, standing at the centre of the cave with her face tilted up. I did not leave the woodlight to see her because its glow bounced back at me from all directions. 1,000,000 crystals arced over our heads, throwing out the light that danced and shifted like underground stars. Even the rock beneath my knees glinted below the glittering ceiling. Dar had told Gabbo and me about places like this. I've never seen one, but once I met a man who'd found a crystal cave under a river. Some crystals are formed by water, others by fire. And as there was no water here, no river, it had to be fire. There are 2 kinds of crystal. One is granite, a light-coloured rock, and like you two, it has a twin, a dark version of itself. Its name is Gabbro. Gabbro. Now as I stood surrounded by the walls of glittering crystals, that coincidence came back to me like a gift. Something clicked slowly into place, like a sum. It all added up, the smell, the crystals, the heat. I could not ignore it any longer. Loop? I think I know what this is. Loop didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the crystals. I took another deep breath and said, "It's a fire pit. That's what formed these. Fire pits happen where the ground is so hot it melts. Imagine that, whole lands filled with flame. Sometimes it rises and swallows entire towns." Gabbo hadn't liked that, but Dard calmed him. But more often they sleep and rumble a bit, or make crystals named like twins. I opened my mouth to tell Loop, but she was looking at me oddly. "Did you say a fire pit?" Just like in the myth of Arinta. I recalled Mars' map, how the lines seemed all jumbled but led to a centre, that strange red circle, at the centre of a map 1,000 years old. I took a deep breath of acidic air. A demon's promise lasts 1,000 years. What are you thinking? Loop's face was wary. I was thinking of the drought. I was thinking of the governor's animals fleeing to the sea. I was thinking of the people in Gris poisoned by the air. The knot on the map was close to the red circle, I said carefully. Maybe only a mile. I think the exit is that way. I pointed to a tunnel on our left, but that way leads to the red circle. I pointed to another, lower tunnel ahead. It shimmered in a different way from the crystals. It shimmered with heat. So? I'd nearly changed my mind, but now was not the time to doubt. Yota is in that red circle. Yota? She wrinkled her nose. From that story you like? I bristled. He's a fire demon, and it's not a story, it's a myth. What's the difference? Irritated, I rubbed my eyes, grit grinding against my lid. A myth is something that happened so long ago people like to pretend it's not real, even when it is. Luke did not say anything for a long time. When she spoke, it was a careful, calming voice, as if to a dangerous animal. Isabella, Yota is no more real than Arinta. Arinta was real. My voice echoed round the cave. And anyway, what about the Tibichenas? They seemed real when they were chasing us. Maybe the horse boy was right, she said in a determined voice. Maybe they were wolves. Wolves as big as horses, whose fur stinks of smoke. Because they live underground, near a fire pit. They're driven by more than hunger. They didn't eat Kata, they killed her and left her to be found. A warning, Zosha called it. They've been sent to clear the island. Don't be stupid, Isabella. You've got to stop believing these things. But Arinta is a story, and you're not her. Her words hurt, but I wasn't going to let her see that. I don't think if you're telling me that is the way out, I'm going and you're coming with me. You can't tell me what to do. I'm older than you. I don't care. I snatched the woodlight from her. I'm going without you. Not looking at Loop, I strode towards the passage shimmering with heat. A sudden pulse shook the ground beneath me. I stumbled and almost fell. Loop had been brought to her knees. Another more violent shudder ran through my body. A single crystal fell from the cave ceiling high above and shattered between us. We locked eyes for a moment, then the world caved in. And that's the end of chapter 19, but we're moving straight on to chapter 20. The noise was tremendous, like 10 thunderstorms and 50 fireworks and 100 Tibichenas jumbled together. I ran to the side of the cave, pressing my palms to my ears, but the sound tore through me, forcing me to the ground as if under a giant thumb. I curled up, teeth chattering, head thumping. The ground roiled like the sea, and I waited for the rock to crush us or to open up beneath me, but it did not. With a final smatter of pebbles, the tremors had stopped. I opened my eyes, squinting through rock dust. Smashed boulders and crystals lay piled in the full length of the cave, dividing it in two. Loop was nowhere to be seen. I shouted her name, but only an echo came back. I stood up and searched for a way past, or over the rock wall, but the boulders were packed solid and my arms shook as I tried to climb them. There was no way out except the tunnel behind me, the one that led to Yota. I cowered against the hot wall of the cave. Tiredness covered me like a cloud. I wrapped my arms around my knees and sobbed. The cries came echoing back, sounding distant and detached. Eventually I stopped, so I didn't have to listen to myself. But the distant sobbing did not stop. As I listened, I thought I could make out a word. Ella, Issa. It was my name, and that voice, it was Loop. I ran my hand over the wall and found a crack splitting its curved side. I followed it as far as I could reach. Then I pressed my mouth to it and said, Loop? I placed my ear back over the crack. Nothing. Even the crying had stopped. Perhaps I'd imagined it. Then a voice, faint and tentative, spoke my name. Heart singing, I spoke into the same place. Find the crack, speak into it. I waited impatiently, ear against the rock, and then Loop's voice came, as clearly as if she was standing beside me. Isabella, are you there? What's happening? Like the crystals, it felt as if Gabbo was in this somehow. Chest tight, I replied, I'm here. I think it's a voice line. A voice line? Gabbo and I had one in our room. They carry your voice, something to do with the curve of the cave. What happened? I'm not sure, I lied, eyes fixed on the tunnel, certain I knew. What now? I've tried climbing over the rockfall. Me too. What about the tunnel to the exit? Blocked. Clearing my throat, I tried to make my voice strong and calm. The way we came into the cave. Is it clear? The sound of her breathing vanished and I pictured her moving across the cave to check. A few moments later, a voice trickled into my ear again. It's completely blocked. There's a gap near the top on the side. I think I could move some... She sounded exhausted. I steeled myself, but Loop spoke before I could. I will try, then get you across. We'll find a different way. And take one of the other paths. Loop. Then we can get out of here, go home. I'll start now. Loop. It won't work. I think you should go. She talked over me, faster and louder, her voice thick. I think I can do it. It's all right, Loop. No, I will. I just need to rest my arms. Her voice trailed off. Yes, you should rest, and then you should go back. I'm not going anywhere. Anger flared in Loop's tone, and you need to promise me the same. The low tunnel was emanating heat. I'd already decided what I was going to do. I decided the moment I saw it. So I lied yet again. I won't go anywhere. Good, she said. Then in a more authoritative voice, as if I hadn't already suggested it. I think we should rest now. Are you going to sleep? Yes. Isa? Yes? Are you going to stay there, near the voice line, I mean? Yes. Her fear made things easier and harder at the same time. I lay down, head twisted awkwardly to stay near the voice line, and waited for Loop to fall asleep. My stomach rumbled loudly. I ran a hand over it, feeling the hard lines of my ribs, remembering days when I'd frown at our simple meals of bread and whatever fish Dar had managed to buy at the market, asking why we didn't eat like people did in his stories of bygone feasts. A meal like that would be a feast to me right now. One of my favourite tales was about the 6 villagers of Joya coming together in Grimera to celebrate the island's 600th year of peace. This was in the old days, Dar said in his storytelling voice, even before Arinta. People brought wild boar and roots cooked with ground chilies and vinegar, dates in spun sugar baskets, palm-sized oysters in pearly shells, crabs and lobsters boiled and served heaped with lemon-scented butter, an octopus the length of a man, shoaled in samphire and salt. My stomach rumbled again. Loop's light snores slid down the voice line, pulling me out of the feast and into the dark. I pushed myself to my feet. My head spun, and pins and needles tingled up and down my fingers. Swallowing back the sick feeling, I walked 5 short paces to the low tunnel mouth. I squeezed my eyes shut and let the heat press on my lids, and I stepped forward. And that's the end of chapter 20. So, it's getting exciting. The next few chapters... The next chapter's not very long, actually. I could just carry on. I think I'm just going to carry on. We'll carry on to chapter 21. And then we've only got 22, 23, 24 and 25. And we'll have finished the book. So I'll record those tomorrow. Right, so chapter 21. This tunnel was different. The rock seemed the same kind as in the rest of the maze, but the air was thick with the strange fizz of energy. It sparked up through my feet and made them tingle, as if I walked in a bed of upturned pins, not stone. The noise grew threatening as I followed the path, the channel narrowing. The now familiar sensation of claustrophobia began to cloud my mind. I would have given all the stories in the world for one breath of cool, clean air. Before all this, I didn't think I was afraid of anything. Now the dark was only one fear on a long, long list. The way the tunnel continued to turn without spitting me back out where I began, could only mean that it was coiling like a shell. The ceiling got lower and lower until I was forced onto my hands and knees. Then the sparks started. At first they were tiny, but as I followed the tightening coils, the gaps opened up in the floor of the tunnel, blazing with heat. I put the wood light in my belt so I could pull myself forward faster. Sparks flew through the cracks, occasionally landing on my clothes. A small flame caught on my sleeve. I fumbled for the water flask and poured a few drops over it. The wonderful coolness rushed over my skin, and thin bands of blue danced across the fabric where the liquid had landed. I knew it was not normal water. The map's transformation had proved that, but this was something else. I looked at the flask, shaking it slightly. It sloshed, nearly full. Arinta entered through a tunnel behind a waterfall, drenching herself in the water to protect her against the flames. I poured a small amount onto my arm, waited for the blue to spread, and held it out to one of the flames. It licked at my skin harmlessly as a breeze. I crouched and carefully rubbed more water over my skin and clothes until only parts of my back were left unprotected. When I continued, it was as if I was doused in ice. Dar once told me about an iceberg that drifted down from the frozen circle when he was 6, 2 decades before the governor arrived. It came out of the Joyan night like a ghost ship, bumping into Gomera's Bay with such force that it gouged a piece of land right out of the earth. It was why Dar became fascinated with seeing new places and charting them. Because of the ice, he was a cartographer. It's odd how things are connected. He always said that. Dar did not believe in fate, but in each decision affecting the next, like a shout starting a landslide. How many connections had brought me here? The possibilities made my head spin as the tunnel got lower, the cracks in the floor wider. My hip bones scraped painfully along the uneven surface, knees chafing as the space got smaller and smaller, closing around me. Soon the tunnel was sloping downwards at an impossible angle, and the weight of my body dragged me forward faster than my arms could brace against the sides. The thought came too late that I should have gone feet first. I tried to wiggle round, but could not fold myself without getting stuck. As I tried to manoeuvre back again, my palm hit a loose rock. It was too late to find something solid to hold on to. Though I tried, nails scrabbling for a crack, anything to stop me falling. Finally, I managed to wedge my bare foot into a crack, wrenching my ankle. Something gave in the soft pad of my foot, and I bit my lip until the throb eased. Ahead of me, the tunnel fell away in almost vertical slope. I brought my knees up to my chest to lodge myself in place and crane my neck. At the bottom it opened out, onto what I could not see, but smoke was billowing up, starting to fill the tunnel. I coughed as a rumbling noise funneled up with greater ferocity than ever before. I slip-skidded down to the opening and gasped, drawing acrid smoke into my lungs. Below me, a gigantic fiery mouth gaped at the centre of a pit, opening and closing, spitting out molten rock. A fire pit. Ledges ringed the walls, flickering with heat that struck me like a blow. The skin on my cheeks was blistering, and my insides felt as raw as my skin. My head swam, and I heaved myself backwards, cramming my legs across the tunnel to keep from falling, coughing and shaking uncontrollably. Though it felt like forever, it could not have been more than a matter of minutes since leaving Loop in the cave. Yet here I was, wedged inside the very rock of Yota's lair, like Arinta 1,000 years before. I thought of all the people I'd not been able to say goodbye to. Dar in the thick dark of the Daedalo, Pablo at the riverbank, Loop sleeping trustingly above. What would happen to her? Would she survive this? Enough. I had to get closer to Yota. I may not be Arinta, but I had to try and save Joya. I lowered myself carefully so my legs dangled down to the ledge below. It was a long drop. I was about to let go when the shaking started again, but it was not the same as the tremors in the crystal cave or the Tiburtina's running. This was deeper, more menacing even than a Tiburtina's howl. Just then I tried to pull myself back. My hands slipped, sending me hurtling, feet first, into the abyss. My hips hit a ledge with a crunch, breaking my momentum, and I found myself hanging from my forearms. Legs swinging uselessly, kicking out over a searing nothingness. My body shook worse than ever. I clawed at the gritted rock, tearing my nails. It was no use. I did not have the strength to lever myself up. But now it came to me, strong as a voice in my ear. I did not want to die. Loop was right. I was not Arinta. I was not special. I wish Loop was here now, pulling me up with her long arms. But she was asleep, still trusting my lies. and now I could not do even what I came here to do. I could not save her, nor Dan, nor Joya. My grip gave way as the ledge shuddered with another violent shake. I fell. I landed hard on the ledge below. Breath knocked viciously from my lungs. My back felt broken in two, white-hot pains sizzling across my legs and the nape of my neck. For a moment, maybe a minute, maybe more, I could not move. My body was full of molten sand. The ground was not beneath me, although I could feel it solidly there. Liquid blackness behind my eyes and my ears, quiet at last. Then, bright stars pricked the air as the rumbling tremors grew. I could feel them, a persistent ripple moving as though the earth itself were water, rolling waves around me. I could feel them, I was sure, but still there was nothing beneath me, as if I was hovering. Part of my brain was all pain, all noise, and the other was nothing, nowhere, not there. Something was very wrong, though I was sure I could not. I sat up. Didn't I? I peeled away, coming free, my body dropping behind me like a cloak. I did not look at it, slack on the ledge. I felt it left there, and the me now crawling to the edge felt rock gritting my knees as I peered over. Yota hung before me. He was not the writhing mass of smoke and molten rock that had filled the pit, but a form that was close to human, only huge, emerging from a column of fire that raged beneath his 6 limbs, spreading from a torso that swirled with ash clouds. He spoke, in a voice that brought smoke rushing up from beneath him and sent it tumbling around until I choked. The voice rattled and rasped like the death throes of a Tibuchina, but inside me, the me kneeling on the edge of the ledge, a point of pressure opened up in my eye, and from this place I felt his words burrow into my brain. What do you want? To stop you, as Arinta did. My voice was lost, fluttering desperately from one self to the other, caught between throats. I was on my knees, I was on my back, but Yota seemed to hear me. Again, pressure pinched my skull. You're too late. Fingers closed on my shoulders. I shut my eyes, ready to fall. And that's the end of chapter 21. Oh, it's all very exciting, isn't it? We're not far now from the end. So, things are hotting up. Isabella is in the fire pit. We're not really sure whether she's conscious or unconscious or dreaming or having an out-of-body experience. But she's left Luke behind, and she is going to try and follow in Arinta's footsteps to try and stop Yota and save Joya. So we shall see what happens. Check in tomorrow and find out more. Bye.